There are two fundamental aspects to making a game mentally and physically engaging: challenge and decision making. There are countless valid ways of combining and varying between challenging the player and forcing them to make meaningful choices, but you cannot throw both of these ingredients away for more than a couple of minutes without the game turning into a chore.
Jesus fucking Christ, this is so boring.
Everything that I just told you, Naughty Dog disagree with. And considering how much influence these boys have over the AAA game dev, that definitely sends several distress signals all throughout my little gamer brain. I think the issue comes from a disagreement or a misunderstanding of what downtime should be, but I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I need to at least mention how these play thingies are structured. Naughty Dog's cinematic games are obviously intended as one-session experiences, meaning that, in a perfect world, they would want you to beat their games in one sitting. Of course, most people never have the 7 to 10 hours of free time to beat Uncharted in one go, but it still plays as one flowing story with chapters acting more as milestones, rather than clearly divided missions and stages. Structuring a game that way requires much more thought to be put into pacing. Hour after hour of shootouts and action set pieces would tire the player out. This is where downtime comes in. Uncharted has two kinds of it: walk and climb and puzzle room. Both of these are nothing. I've been looking for a word to describe how they feel or what they add to the game, but they don't. They're not relaxing side activities to fall back to whenever you're winded and want some slower gameplay, because essentially there's no gameplay here. They're like a ride in an elevator. You tolerate it to get to the good part. When climbing, you're not being challenged. There's only one straightforward way to climb, and they often highlight the objects you're supposed to climb on. It's the kind of exercise a great game would have only at the very beginning of the campaign, to introduce the player to the controls, get them ready to use it during combat. Uncharted has these sections all throughout itself. And then there's the other kind of downtime: puzzle room. Just why? The hardest thing to figure out about them is their target audience. Drake always carries his book of answers with him, so all you need to do is read it. Oh, so I combine the red triangle with a red picture. Oh. I'm so smart. There's no challenge, and the only decision to make is whether to press the power button and go do something useful. Now guess what they did with The Last of Us? Do you think they addressed these weak spots? Last of Us looked at Uncharted's downtime as a frame for a picture that isn't there. Yet, both walk and climb and puzzle room are still present in The Last of Us, but they're not the focus of the downtime segments anymore. Now the game occupies your mind by throwing you into an environment that can either help you beat the next unavoidable conflict if you pay attention and find all the weapon ingredients, or kill you if you bumble through it like I did. On my first playthrough, as soon as a calmer segment of the game started, I just ran ahead thinking that this is one of those mindless parts where you walk and talk with your partners. Imagine my shock when in the first building I entered, there were 3 clickers that greeted me with,
"What's up, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it."
I was barely able to fight them off, spent almost all of my ammo and health. The game challenged my awareness, I failed and got punished. And that's not all, by the way. Remember all those weapon ingredients? Well, I hope those big eyes of yours came with a big brain, cause now you gotta choose. Do you use the alcohol to craft a Molotov or a health kit? Do you use the blade to craft a bomb, a shiv, or a sharp stick for beating someone to death with, like a caveman? There's definitely a choice there. I know crafting is not revolutionary, but it just works. It just works. Oh god, I'm morphing into a vile creature known as Todd Howard. Speaking of turning into disappointment, Uncharted 4 took almost nothing from The Last of Us in terms of downtime. While Last of Us used walk and climb and puzzle room as a foundation for slower parts and built something on top of it, Uncharted 4 said, no, that's good enough, and ran with it. Simply adding 2 more kinds of thoughtless downtime: drive and winch and push a box. The first one is you finding an intuitive path as usual, but now you're driving instead of climbing. Oh, and sometimes you walk out of your car, you grab the winch, and you wrap it around a lone tree or something equally obvious so that the car can keep going. But don't worry, The second one is much more exciting. Get this. You use a crate as a step, or you weigh down a seesaw with it.
Hey, nice airtime.
It broke new ground!
There's nothing to chew on. It's all visual and shallow. They even made these huge, breathtaking areas. And what's there to do in them? Just drive towards the obvious landmark to advance the plot, occasionally stopping to pick up useless collectibles and weapons that you're gonna swap out 15 seconds into the next gunfight anyway. As Nate said himself,
Nothing worthwhile. Come on, let's keep going.
how about this? Make those sprawling areas a bit harder to navigate. Give me a compass, a map, and don't tell me where I am. Make me climb up trees and old towers to see landmarks so I could roughly approximate my location on the map. Maybe I won't be careful, stumble across a scripted encounter with a crocodile, and while fighting him off, lose some finite climbing equipment that makes traversal easier. Maybe there's only so much climbing Drake can do before getting tired, making the next shootout harder. You know, some consequence, some punishment other than, oh I died, now I have to replay those last 20 seconds. And don't make the entrance to my goal obvious, it's a lost treasure after all. There's a reason nobody found it. It's a perfect fit for Uncharted. The game is all about seeking forgotten riches in beautiful environments. Sure, it would be hard to pull off as only the downtime part of the game. The areas would need to be massive for it to be possible to get lost in them. But if someone can afford to do it, it's Naughty Dog. Their game budgets are huge. They're a first-party dev for Sony, and they have proven multiple times in the past that they can create believable nature areas. Or they can just spend money recreating the set pieces and areas from their older games, just now making them even more epicer and cinematicer. And please spend as much time as possible fleshing out the notebook mechanics, where you can try combinations with pieces of virtual paper before trying them out on the puzzle itself, even though the mechanism is literally meters away. And if you really couldn't hold a bit of information in your head, then you could just use a piece of paper and pen in the real world. Getting back to the main point. When you're playing the new God of War or Tomb Raider or any title replicating the Naughty Dog formula, and you're going through yet another boring walk-in chapter where almost no input is expected from you, don't take the "it's for pacing" excuse. A game can pull off that kind of section once or twice without it souring the whole experience, but that doesn't mean the devs should get comfortable with using it as a go-to crutch. I want more AAA games that are engaging to play all the way through, not more Disneyland rides that sometimes reluctantly allow you to leave the car. Hope I'm not the only one.